account. And we first of all have the title of the company XYZ Limited, and we have to have the manufacturing account as the title. And the year, for the year ended. It could be December, I'm assuming 2019. 2019. Now we begin by dividing, having the two columns. Now we start by recording the opening stock of raw materials. Opening stock of raw materials. Then we add an amount of purchases of raw materials. Then we add the carriage inwards or carriage on raw materials. And we sum up to find out what is the cost of materials available for consumption. Cost of materials available, and it will less the closing stock. Of raw materials. Once we have subtracted the closing stock, the value we find is the materials consumed, and we transfer on the further end, which we call the cost of materials consumed. Cost of raw materials consumed. This is the first component of the cost of production. Now we have to look for the second component, and the second component is the prime cost. On the prime cost, we are just going to add all the direct labor or direct wages, direct labor measured in wages that the firm will pay, which is this much. Then we have to add all the direct expenses. A total of the materials consumed plus the direct labor and the direct expenses gives us the next component, number 2, in the production cost, which is known as the prime cost. Now, once we have determined the prime cost, the next level or the next component we need to determine is the factory cost of production. And our factory cost of production, we take into consideration all the indirect manufacturing costs. Indirect manufacturing costs or expenses. And in other words, this is also known as factory overheads. Under factory overheads, I'll mention a few examples of factory overheads that could be added on the prime cost because there are many. I'll start with depreciation of planted equipment. Plant and equipment. Then we can also have, I can also mention the supervisor's salaries. Supervisor's salaries. I will also mention factory rent. Rent and rates. Factory power and electricity. Factory power and electricity. And I shall just put here ETC because the expenses are quite many and varied. So these ones, you put them in the first column. Get the total, transfer the total on the outer side. And whatever it is here, this is not the cost of production because we have what we call the work in progress. And we have seen that work in progress is the cost of unfinished products, which has to be adjusted on the manufacturing account. So in this case, we adjusted the same way you adjust for the raw materials. So we say add opening stock, work in progress, and you less closing stock, work in progress. Whatever you find here is now the resultant cost of production or cost of goods manufactured. You can either call it cost of production or cost of goods manufactured.